So, here, I feel like I should put my face in the video. Hi, we're going to be teaching you guys how to do a basic stage makeup look today. We're going to kind of go over how you set up your station and then the actual application and then how you clean it up and keep it all sanitized for each student. So to set up your station, everybody at their station should have a trash can, some Kleenex, and some paper towels, as well as some kind of sanitation, be it hand wipes or actual hand sanitizer. And that should be used in between every student just to kind of keep germs to a minimum.
Yeah, you want to have the set, everybody should just have a thing of baby wipes at their station. It's always a good idea in case you have to touch up a mistake or something.
Yeah. So to begin with, everybody is going to have a little palette, which is basically just a paper plate. And we're going to be using this today. And the way that you set up your palette is you grab your foundation. This is just a little cream foundation and your little spatula. And again, to keep germs at a minimum, you just use a little spatula to grab a little bit of the foundation.
Can you show, make sure you show how, when you get it on the plate, show them how much.
And you put it on the plate. You don't need a ton. This is pretty heavy coverage stuff. And heavy-handed means that it just gets cakier on their faces. So less is more in this case.
But you do want to create, basically you're creating a mask with the foundation. You are putting it all over their face, underneath my eyes, my eyelids, all the way, my ears, and all the way down into here, because the foundation color is a shade darker than than my skin would be. If we were using the foundation, the theater makeup today, which we are not going to because we have to go to rehearsal after this, we would normally choose a shade darker, and you won't have to worry about that because that's all written down for you. But definitely, if I were wearing a dress for my costume, if it came down to here and my makeup ended here, you would see the difference in the color. So definitely blend all the way in. And as you're getting into the neck, then pull it in without adding a whole lot of extra foundation, because you just want to blend it. Okay? Lives is putting the kitty downstairs.
I just have a fear of him walking in front of the camera while we do this. So you're going to set up your lip color the same way. You're going to grab a spatula and your little lipstick, and you scrape off a little bit. I'm not going to do this because this is Mrs. Hope's actual lipstick and I don't want to wreck it. And she just puts this straight on her lips. But you're going to use a spatula the same way. Just scrape it off and put it on the plate before you do anything so that you have it all set. So in between that, again, just kind of as a prep, with eyeliners and lip liners, you want to wipe down the tips of the pencils as well as sharpen them in between each child. So we've already done that. We've sharpened both the eyeliner and the lip liner, so we don't have to do that right now. But that's, again, just to keep germs nice and low. And then you're going to be using clean utensils the whole time. So a new spatula, a new mascara brush, like a spoolie, a new lip brush, clean sponges. You should never be reusing things for different kids. With mascara, especially since you have to dip them into the tubes, if you need to reapply mascara to the spoolie, you should get a new spoolie, which is the little wand. You should never be double dunking.
This is a spoolie.
Yeah.
They're longer. The disposable ones are longer. But at your station, you should have a supply of spoolies, your Q-tips, your sponges, all your brushes, and everything.
And then once you're done with each child, making sure that all of their used supplies go into the trash so that you don't actually accidentally pick it up and use it on another kid, just as a good practice. So we're going to start now, officially.
Okay. One more thing, though. These are not disposable.
Yes.
Okay. The brushes, this is a powder brush, and this is an angled blush brush. These you'll have a bin that you'll put those in when you're finished with them, so we aren't reusing them between kids. Normally, we would have each child come to you with a bag, and we may end up with that today. I don't know if we're going to have time over the weekend. But normally the kids come to you with a bag that has their name on it, and it has those brushes and an eyeliner in it so that you don't have to worry about this. But in order to save time, we may end up just putting the supplies at the station, and you and you will put them into a used bin. All right.
So we're about to start. You're probably not going to be able to see my face, and I'll try my best to not block Mrs. Hope's face so that you can see what I'm doing. But right now, we just grabbed some of her foundation and one of these little sponges, and you kind of want to just pat it in a little bit so it's nice and even, so you don't have like dots on the face. Basically, the more even it is on the sponge, the more even it shows up on the face. I tend to do the T-zone first, just because that's where you need the most. So it's across the forehead and down your nose and in your chin area, just because, again, most people tend to get most oily there. So the more product you have there, the less shiny it'll be. So you just kind of start out by patting this on. And don't be afraid to get more product onto your sponge if you need it. And you want to go, if you can tilt your head down, sorry, right up to their hairline. Because, again, if it's darker than their skin tone, you don't want them to have like a forehead line that makes them look like they've got this weird scar across the top of their head.
And with theater makeup, you want to make sure that you're literally going to just go right over their eyebrows, their eyelids, into their nostrils, everything. You know, just cover the entire face with the makeup.
You can swipe it on. I find that I work better when I just pat it on. But especially around the eyes, you want to be very careful because eye skin is very delicate. You don't want to drag it and possibly hurt them. Do you do foundation on the lips as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This part you probably have to fight with them a little bit on because they think it's weird. But trust me, it makes their lipstick wear a lot longer, which is really important when they're on the stage because they've got, close for me, the lights are really hot and makeup. The reason that stage makeup is so dark and so heavy is because those lights are so
intense
and they melt off.
Well, the other thing is that when you're under the lights, they wash you out. That's why we do all the heavy makeup, and that's the other reason we go a shade darker than your actual skin. And Liza's going to show you that we're going to go right into the neck.
Yeah, so turn for me. So you get their earlobes right up onto their ears, and then you just, chin up for me, drag it right down their neck. And because, again, this is Mrs. Hoke's foundation and we're going to rehearsal, she doesn't need it all the way down onto like her sternum area, but you just want to blend it out a little bit so that, again, it doesn't look like she's got a chin strap of foundation on.
Some kids are going to have, areas that are, you want to have a little more coverage on. I have some spots on the side of my face, on my neck here, that I tend to put a little bit more on as sort of a concealer. I have dark circles under my eyes, so we will, apply a little extra layer of the foundation underneath my eyes. And Liza's going to show you in a second how to get underneath the eye, because you need to go all the way into the corners and way under the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to look up like this.
So your sponge is triangular shaped. It's got a skinny end and a fat end. I tend to use the flat side because I can cover more. But when you're going into delicate areas like the eye, you want to use this skinny little end so they've got the littlest amount of stuff coming at their face, which usually stresses them out a little bit. So you take the skinny end, get a little bit of product on there, and you have them look way up at the sky, not with their heads, but with their eyes.
Right. Sometimes I ask them to look at my finger.
Yeah,
so I'll hold my finger up and say, okay, look at my finger. It's okay. And sometimes if you get a child that's really anxious about getting their makeup around their eyes, you can show them. I mean, I literally have shown children that I can touch my eyeball and it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so you can see right now the difference that made. So Mrs. Hoke doesn't have really heavy eye bags, but she does have a little bit of darkness like most people do. And you can see already this eye looks a lot brighter than this eye simply because we've put makeup under it. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you have them look up right here. And take the time that you need, but generally the quicker you do it, the better off everyone
exactly.
is. Just because
this should go really quick.
it's a fast thing.
Yeah.
So now we're pretty much done with her foundation.
Liza, I can see.
Oh.
Can you get in the corners?
Yep, right in the
eyes?
corners. Yes.
Just have them close their eyes. This really, again, along with the eye darkness underneath my eyes, if I get the corners of my eyes, it really brightens up my eyes. And that's kind of the goal we have here, is a natural look, but we want them to look awake and bright on stage.
Usually,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Something that I also do, because a lot of times when they do have their eyes closed, they get even more flinchy than usual, is I'll touch the side of their face that I'm about to touch with my pinky, because it steadies my hand, but it also gives them a little bit of warning that you're about to go in, so they're less likely to jerk back when you're doing eyeliner or something and stab themselves with it. Close for me. And it also just gives you a little bit more stability and what's the word I'm looking for here?
Stability, it's true. Okay, so she's going to go like this right here too, because you want to, again, it's a darker color. So this is my normal makeup, so it's not a darker color. But if you're going in with a darker color and they have makeup that's on the top of their nose and not here, it looks really weird.
They look like they have giant nose sockets.
Yeah.
So once you're done with your foundation, you take this fluffy brush that we just showed you at the beginning, and you have on each table a plate full of translucent powder. It looks white, but it doesn't show up like clown white. And you just pat your brush in there, and then I'm going to show you from here. You tap it out so that, obviously, we've got a ton of makeup on here. So you can pat it on an empty part of it, so you've got a nice kind of even layer of it, so it looks kind of dusty as opposed to clumpy.
Right, and we may do this in stations for this next show. So we might have one person this is their whole job. So that we send the kids, okay, you're done with foundation, now you go to the powder person, and we have one person that's their whole job, is to do this. Okay, here we go.
So again, I do the same thing that I do with foundation. You start across their forehead and down their nose, and then set everything else. With powder especially, with foundation, you can kind of get away with either tapping it or swiping it. With powder, you want to push it because you're packing it on top of the foundation. So if you're swiping it, you could be swiping the foundation off their face. So you just want to pat it into place. And this is just to make sure that the powder doesn't go anywhere.
And when I do this, it's like wicked fast. When the kids, go really fast, Liza. That's because this is how yes, exactly. That's how you're going to do it. If you're the person that's on this job, they hate it.
And it feels weird.
Yeah, it feels bizarre.
And don't forget to get where you've put all of their foundations on their ears as well. And go all the way over their eyes, because that's where you've put foundation.
Okay.
So
I wanted to say one thing about this too. It sets the makeup, but which is good, because you absolutely want to do this before you put on blush. Otherwise, when you go to put the blush on, if their face is wet, it's an oil-based makeup. It literally, the brush will just stop when you go to put the blush on. But they're going to, even though this sets the makeup, it doesn't make it so that it won't come off. So that's the final step, is the barrier spray, and that we'll do after we're all done.
So this is blush. Usually it's in little containers like this, but sometimes you have a palette. You want to pick a nice neutral color, just because, again, going for like a regular, natural, everyday kind of look on people. So you pack it on, not too heavily, but you put it on a little angled blush. And if you're having trouble with your kids, have them smile, and that little round part of their cheek is where it should end. It shouldn't go any further in, because they'll look like little toy soldiers. Now, personally, I start at the temple and come down, because in case I have too much product on my brush, it can kind of like blend out. But I know a lot of times people start in the apple.
I usually start at the apple.
It's kind of personal preference. You're just trying to make sure that you don't get too much kind of either way. So I'll do this side my way, and I'll do this side your way, and we can see. Because sometimes I'm a little heavy-handed getting the blush on.
Okay, I want to just point something out. So I have very hollowed out cheeks. It's not a great feature, but this is my cheekbone from here to here. And that's kind of the space that we're going for. So from the apple here out here. Now, if you have a child that has a particularly full face,
Like mine.
okay,
No real cheekbones to speak of.
you can do a contour. So contouring means that you'd fill this in with a little bit of darker makeup. So like you'd have a lighter color blush here and a darker here. Sometimes if we want someone to look older, like me with my hollowed out cheeks, the one way to do that is to use a darker foundation color there. And we are not going to go into the age makeup today because Liza will probably end up doing the age makeup on, and I will do the age makeup on our grandparents. But, we use highlight, here on the nose, and we use, that here sometimes if you want to highlight that. But again,
depends on who you're doing.
Take it away, Liza.
No,
Sorry.
no problem. That's okay. No, it's good. So again, if you turn for me this way, you start you don't want to go any lower than the tip of their ear. And if you're not sure where their cheekbones are, because a lot of times with kids, they haven't yet gotten really defined cheekbones, have them make fishy faces, and you shouldn't go down over their cheekbone. Like anything under their cheekbone will make them look like they've got a shadow. Luckily, Mrs. Hook has these beautiful cheekbones that I don't need to worry about. So again, I start up kind of in the hairline and I just kind of pull it down a little bit. See, I was a little heavy-handed right there. And since it's up by her temple, it doesn't look as kind of vibrant as it would have if I had started right here and given her a little toy soldier kind of look. But you just want to dust it on. You don't want to smash it into their face, but you do want to just give it a little light dusting. And if it does come on a little strong, you can kind of blend it into their little powder. That's why you put the powder on first, so that if it does come on a little strong, you're not trying to smush it around their face.
If you would have not put the powder on, it would have just been a blob right there. So
another thing, so I do this because, again, like I said, I tend to be heavy-handed with blush, is you can kind of put it into the blush and then tap it on the side of your hand to redistribute the powder properly.
Okay, I actually even touch my hand. I use the backs of my hands all the time as a palette. So when I'm doing makeup on people, I will just test it on my own hand. That comes in really handy when you're using eyeliners, because an eyeliner gets very, if it hasn't been used in a long time and we've wiped them all down with alcohol, they get to, so that they're almost hard on the end. And a soft eyeliner is much easier to use. So whenever I'm doing any child, I always start out, if I'm using a liner, a pencil liner of any kind for eyebrows or eyeliner, I do it on my hand first. That kind of warms it up, and it gets that really hard tip off too, because sometimes you'll be going to use it and it'll break the tip off, and that's never popular. So so you want to just use it a little bit on your hand just to warm it up and get it going.
Which one of these do you use? That one. Okay, so we're going to be deviating a little bit from what you'll be doing. Today we're going to be doing Mrs. Hoke's eyebrows with a powder palette. Mm-hmm. Usually you'll have a pencil that's like an eyeliner pencil.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, again, eyebrows, we're not looking for anything very geometric. You're just filling in what they've got to make them look like they have eyebrows.
Right, but it's particularly important because we've already put foundation over their eyebrows, so they look blended in. Okay, and on blondes in particular, they need to have some color. We don't want you to use any kind of super dark color, and most of the time it's almost a blonde. In fact, I often, if I'm using a pencil, will use a blonde on me, so on myself. So you want to follow their natural line of their eyebrow, and you'll be good.
Yeah, there's no reason to overdraw it, and a good rule of thumb is you never use black. Doesn't matter what color their hair is, you never use black because it looks very harsh on stage. So even if they've got the darkest brown hair you've ever seen, you're going to use a little bit lighter than their hair color. And with blondes, you use a little bit darker than their hair color. And that looks the most natural. Yeah. With redheads, you're not going for a red eyebrow because, as you can see, I have red hair and I do not have red eyebrows. It doesn't look right, I promise you. So I'm just going to fill these in. You're going to, if you have a brush, but it still holds true with A pencil is just short little strokes to kind of mimic little hairs.
Yes, if you have a little a liner, I mean, if we're using pencil, you don't draw a straight line. It's little hair lines that then you end up smoothing with.
So you get a little spoolie. This one magically has a spoolie on the back, so you can see already the difference that that little powder made on Mrs. Hook's eyebrow. However, you don't want it to be that harsh, so you just kind of go in and you blend it together. So you can still see it, but it's not like I took a Crayola marker to her face.
Right.
And this is also good because it means that you can brush your eyebrow hairs into submission if they've been particularly naughty that day. Same thing on this side. So something that I tend to do is and I think you do it as well, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the kids close their eyes unless they need to.
Yeah.
It freaks them out because they can't see what you're doing. And not that they can necessarily see what you're doing anyway, but they feel better knowing kind of what's coming towards their face. And a lot of times they'll have questions for you about what you're doing.
We don't always have mirrors at every station. I'm going to try to have mirrors at every station. Some kids just do better if they can see what you're doing. I actually find that they trust, they usually trust me. And I tell them before we start, I go like this. I touch my eye. I touch my eyelid. I say, it's okay. We're not going to poke your eye out no matter what we're doing here. And even if you haven't done this a lot, just tell them, I've been doing makeup for 20 years now.
A little white lie never hurt anybody.
Well, it's not a white lie. Most of the women who are going to be working, and men, if we have men, have been applying their own makeup for 20 years. So it's not a lie. Just tell them, you're not my first person to do makeup on.
Not my first rodeo.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do right now is kind of go over something that Mrs. Hook mentioned earlier, is taking a little bit of highlight just to kind of bring a little bit more light into your face. So I'm just going to be using her brow palette because it's got a little light color. But this is not simpatico, but we don't have a brush for this right now. So I'm taking my little ring finger, and you just want to put it a little bit under her brow bone, a little bit along her nose and at her forehead and along the tops of her cheeks, just to say, like, this is where the light hits. And then
if you want to be a cheater like me, I do this too. That spot right there. I always put a little bit of that, a little bit of the highlighter right there. And it, again, gives me more of an awake look.
And it just kind of tricks your eye into thinking that you've got facial features that you may not have been naturally graced with, like cheekbones. For me.
If you are a person who is going to be applying the makeup for the kids, it's a good idea to have some gum. If you notice I'm chewing it, because if there's one thing that's hard when you're getting your makeup done, I mean, I've literally left. When somebody's got horrendous breath, you're just like, yeah, can I be done? So if you are an applier, make sure that fresh breath is a priority.
I don't disagree with that. So we're going to be using this eyeliner today. Again, generally sharpening it is not just for cleanliness. It also makes it a little bit easier because it's a thinner line. You don't have to worry about big streaks. We only want to line the top line, and it's not like a winged eyeliner kind of thing. It's like right along their lash line. It doesn't get pulled out. It should be about as thin as you can make it. I get it. They're kind of twitchy, and we understand that that's difficult, but try and make it as thin as possible and try and make it kind of as light as possible.
Okay,
just because.
Let's try two different ways. So Liza's going to do this eye with my eye open, and then we'll do it on this eye with my eye closed, and you'll see the difference. It makes a big difference in terms of its application, the success you have. If you can do it with their eyes open, it's much better.
Okay.
So, we're going to do my lower eye, or my upper eye, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
So she's going to start from about the middle and then go out. So have them look over here.
I usually tell them to find a poster on the wall and to read it to me.
And what I do is I hold my finger over there. I often rest she's so good that she doesn't need to rest her hand. I usually rest my hand here and then go.
And again, pretty quick. I mean, you want it to be visible, but
Yeah,
They
right.
tend to be
That's it.
fairly twitchy.
Right, exactly. And that's it. So this
And then-
time I'm going to close my eye and you'll see that you can look, it's a very thin line that she's put on there and it's hardly noticeable. We don't want them to look like,
Cartoons.
right. Okay.
So then close your eye for me. It's harder when they close their eye simply because the contour of their eye is harder to trace and they tend to be twitchier and it tends to get thicker.
Yeah, they
So look
start-
at that.
Yep. It's
It's slightly heavier on this side. And to be
Right.
fair, I've been
It's
doing
okay.
stage makeup on other people for a long time, so
Right.
I'm better at it than most. But
You'd be surprised how much harder it is sometimes to put it on other people than it is to put it on yourself. So if you have an opportunity to practice on your own child over the weekend, please do it because the more you do it, the better you'll get.
And the other thing about it is that even if you've been doing it for yourself for a while, like one of the things I've struggled with over the years of doing stage makeup is that my eye shape is not the same as everyone else's eye shape. And so the way that I do my eyeliner is very different from how I do Mrs. Hoke's eyeliner, simply because our eyes are different shaped, and that means that they indent at different places and they've got different heights and lows. And so it's the more you can practice on different people, the better.
Right. Now, this isn't a typical... actually, I shouldn't say that. I do want to have the lower lid because we don't... I think just the corner of it from here to about here. Mm-hmm. Okay,
So when you're doing the lower lid, having
Yeah.
them look up and to
here
the
again,
side
yeah, like this really
would
helps.
help if I had it extended. I
like to start in the middle and move out. So other people like to do. But okay, we aren't doing wings. No ballet wings. And there's nothing wrong with ballet wings. The reason is because our stage is actually small and our theater is small. If I were in a house that sat 1,200 people, we'd probably be doing ballet wings on eyes, okay? We would be doing much heavier eyeliner. But for our purposes, we are not going to be doing that. Again, I'm looking over here. I'm looking up and over here.
And honestly, as Mrs. Hoke said, starting from the middle of the eye is actually easier on a lot of the kids because for whatever reason, they tend to freak out more when you're over at the corner of their eye than they do at the middle of your eye. For whatever reason, it just feels weirder to them. And so they get more fidgety as you move outwards as opposed to starting fidgety and just getting worse. So we're going to move on to eyeshadow. And basically with eyeshadow, again, nothing crazy. You're going to put one color from their lash line pretty much all the way up to their eyebrow. And then you're going to go in with a darker color and just fill in that little crease area where your eyelid, unless you have a monolid, where your eyelid kind of bends so that it looks like they've got depth to their eyes. So you just take a little brush. Make sure I'm using the right side of your brush. No.
Good luck.
I figured it out. Oh my gosh, these brushes are tiny. My nails are not going to work. And again, eyelids are very delicate, so just try and kind of press it on instead of dragging it. It's generally better.
You're so good, Liza. I fly. When I do these kids, it's just like I
do too normally, but
like
this little
going
brush
really
is also
fast,
slipping out of my
and I'm just like, you know.
Gosh, this little brush does not want to stay in my hand right now.
The funny part about when the kids close their eye is it's like it feels weird to have someone touching your eyelid when your eye is closed. And they need to when they're doing this. Yeah, when you're doing the eyeshadow, they have to have their eyes closed.
Yeah. And then bless you. You take a slightly darker color, so that was a pretty close to white kind of color. Mm-hmm. And you take a slightly darker color, and if you can't find their crease, so fortunately Mrs. Hoke has these beautiful brow bones, and you can see exactly where you'd be putting the crease. It's that darker line. But on some kids you can't. This is going to be a little bit of a moment with some of them. Okay. If you can't find it, you can kind of press on their eyelid while their eyes are open and figure out where the bottom of their brow bone is, and that's where you kind of just stick it in. So it's where your finger kind of indents a little bit, where the brush kind of naturally wants to go is where you should be putting it. Starting at the outer corner and moving in because you don't want to have a big old crease.
You don't need a ton of this. Just a little tiny bit is really.
I just want to blend that out. Again, you don't want it to be.
We don't want them to
so heavy. Heavy-handed.
Yes. We're going for a natural look, and we're just trying to enhance their natural features, and so that they don't get washed out under the lights. And that's the only reason we do this at all.
And it's also a little bit, I'm having a bit of trouble right now because I'm trying to be ambidextrous so that you can see what I'm doing without me being like, oh, this is what I'm doing. You can't see anything. So it's taking me a little bit longer than it would if I was sitting there doing somebody's.
Right. Okay.
So you can see it's got like a little bit. So if you close your eyes, it looks a lot less pronounced. And that's just because Mrs. Hook has these beautiful eyebrows and these beautiful brow bones. And so she doesn't really need that extra color right in her crease line.
I mean, honestly,
she doesn't usually do
very
it probably.
often. Yeah, exactly.
But on kids, especially like someone like me, when I close my eye, you can't really see where my brow bone hits.
Okay.
And so it just makes it a little bit more defined so that they don't look flat on stage.
Okay.
And then once you've done eyeshadow, you're going to go in with mascara. Again, don't double dip your spoolies. It spreads germs.
Yes, definitely.
Nobody wants conjunctivitis.
Most of the kids have brought in their own mascaras, so it's not a big deal. If we'll have them, they'll come to you with a plastic bag that has their own. You can double dip then if it's their own. But if they don't have their own, you cannot double dip or we have to throw away the mascara. I am a nurse and I'm really particular about keeping everything as close to sterile as we can. Mm-hmm. So, okay.
So with mascara, you're going to do a similar thing that you did with eyeliner, which is have them look in the opposite direction where you're coming from. So they're looking towards there. So I'm going to start with Mrs. Hook's left eye, which means I'm going to have her look to the right to try and keep her eyes out of the way.
Are you going to do upper or lower?
I'm going to do upper.
Okay. So you're going to have me look down a little bit then?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So, down to the right. So you can either hold a finger out here or ask them to like look at the corner of a table. If you can't do both at once.
If they try to look at the brush, it's a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to give them something to look at.
So you give them something and you just kind of swipe it. Again, nothing crazy.
Yeah. And if they start to blink, it's okay. Just use the blinks. I literally just hold the brush then. If they start to blink like this, then I just use blink.
So here, I'll show you how you can do that. So you just hold the brush and you ask them to blink a couple of times. There you go. Look. It's the easiest thing you've ever done.
And it really, all we're trying to do here is that you've put this foundation on their face. So now their eyelashes have mascara, they have foundation on them. You don't need a ton of mascara. They really don't need a whole lot. We're not trying to do anything intense here. Some of the kids we will give we're going to be putting false eyelashes on them if you want to do a glamour look or something like that. But for this show, we don't have really a couple of glams. We've got Veruca and Violet maybe, and maybe some of the moms. But everybody else, we're just trying to give them some eyes up on stage. That's all. Because it's the most expressive part of their face.
Yeah. So you're going to do, again, the same thing that you do for your lower lash line. Have them look up at the sky to get their lower lashes. And it's kind of just a swipe. It doesn't need to be anything serious. And also, sometimes Mrs. Hook just did it without thinking about it. A lot of times, your lower eyelashes are very close to your lower eyelids. Mm-hmm. So if you have them go, it kind of pulls a little bit, and they feel a little bit better about that, and you're less likely to get it onto their actual skin. There you go. It's just like a couple swipes. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to get right up into the base of their eyelashes. If you can, that's great. But if they're fidgety, just get what you can. And
honestly, some of the kids are going to be fidgety and are going to be. I mean, we have a couple of kids that have some issues that if it's going to become traumatic, please, it's not necessary. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mascara is sometimes we just skip it all together. Mm-hmm. So it's a finishing touch, okay? If they're freaking out, just send them on their way. Mm-hmm. Or you go on to the next step.
So lastly, we're going to do lips. Again, that's just because we've put a whole bunch of foundation on top of their lips to keep the lip liner on, but it means that now their lips have blended into their face. So again, very similar to eyebrows. You don't overline their lips at all.
Yeah.
You just want to go.
Even though, as you can see, I have very little upper lip. I do not want to see, people
clown
trying to, correct that. If I were going to be doing a modeling shoot or something, they might do something like that. But we don't need to do that. Besides that, these kids have beautiful lips. Mm-hmm. They're little children and they have beautiful full lips. So no need for that.
So I tend to start in the middle because you can kind of make a little X for the Cupid's bow. If they don't have one, that's totally fine. And then you just kind of want to drag it. You don't want to, again, overline, and you want kind of a natural-ish looking color. If it's a bit of a thicker line, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a skinny, skinny line like I was able to do on the top. And as you can see, that side of her mouth already looks more there simply because you've managed to put that on there. Sometimes if they're, again, having a bit of trouble with it, asking them to do this so that you can get right in there is good, but sometimes they can't do that, and that's okay.
It also sometimes I'll have them do that before I start. I'll say, like that, and then relax, and then it helps.
I'm being more careful than I would because Mrs. Hoke has to go be a real human after this, and she won't be on stage as well.
So the other thing is that for stage makeup, what we'll do is fill this all in. And I can't see that particularly well. So fill the whole lip.
And you want to do that actually because lip liner is sticky, like almost tacky, and it's going to feel gross when you do that with them just because it feels sticky on their lips, which is surprising because how many of them walk around with popsicle on their face but can't handle lip liner. But the good thing about it is that it lasts longer, but it also keeps their lipstick on more. So even if the lipstick does wear off later on, their lip liner will be there. And but ask them to smush a little bit.
Yeah. But oh gosh, don't even have them do that. Don't have them smush because I've had them go and get it all over their face. So, okay, right now my lips feel like a desert. Okay, so they like it when you put the lipstick on because it actually moisturizes them. You've already put foundation and powder on their lips. Now you're adding another dry layer of lip liner. It feels good to have the lipstick on. But if they're moving around and touching it and stuff, it's going to come off. That's why you want that lip liner on because it will literally stay on even if the lipstick comes off.
Yeah. And so finally, you're going to take one of these little tiny brushes. It's, I mean, again, disposable brushes.
You put
and
it on
it'll
your
be
plate.
on the palette. We're not doing this because this is Mrs. Hoke's lipstick and we don't want to wreck it. But so you just take a little bit, you dunk it in. The reason you put it on your plate is in the event that you have to go back and get more of it.
Exactly.
You're not putting the brush back onto the lipstick.
Yeah, and please, when you're doing this, it just, with the spatula, it's just a very light bit. Don't put a chunk of lipstick on. Lipstick costs $7 easy. A tube, and so we literally spend hundreds of dollars each time we do a show on makeup, and it's because of we have to replenish the foundation and the lipstick. So please, be conservative, but you can't use that brush again on if you need to double dip. You have to get a new brush, okay?
And then I tend to start in the middle just because that's where the biggest space is. It's easier to be more delicate once you've kind of gotten it on there, and you just kind of spread it on.
Yeah, really one layer is plenty with the lip. You're just really trying to moisturize it and give it a little bit of highlight. The light will jump off of the shinier lipstick than it will the lip blush. Okay, so I'm just going to point out something here. Some of the kids, let's just talk a little bit about correction. Okay, none of them, they're all pretty perfect in my eyes, but sometimes if a child has a broader nose, you can do a darker foundation here, and that will make that less broad. It's the same way with the face. You can do the contouring here for a broader face.
And across the forehead if they've got a very tall forehead.
Yes. But other than that, I can't think of anything else we would do for correction-wise.
Usually with the corrections, especially with like the nose and the forehead and the cheekbones, it's to help age somebody because, again, they've got these beautifully round faces. They haven't kind of like grown into their faces yet.
Yeah.
And so you're doing that to try and like create the illusion that they are older, that they've got more depth to their face, more angles to their face, like they've gone through puberty. And that's usually the only time we do it.
Okay. So we're almost done.
Final step, the least favorite step.
Yes. And we're actually not going to put this on my face right now because, like Liza said, we have to go to rehearsal. But she's going to demonstrate the way it's done. So, I'm going to turn to the side because, and usually what we do is we have one mom or two moms that their whole job is to do what we call barrier spray. The kids have to have this and they have to have it, down into here because the barrier spray, it's basically like hairspray, okay? It sets the makeup so that it doesn't come off onto the costumes
or onto anybody
onto
that they
any-
have to hug or
Yes,
touch with their
exactly.
face. Like
Exactly.
it's an insurance policy, so we don't have to wash the costumes to get
As
all the
much,
makeup
right.
off of their like
Yeah,
necklines.
makeup can ruin costumes, and so I'm really picky about it. So
So I'm going to actually have Mrs. Hoke look at the screen for just a second so I can show you exactly where it goes. So usually what you do with barrier spray, you do 6 sprays. One across the forehead, one down their T-zone, and then an X and an X. So sorry, I did that count.
wow,
I did that
you
count
do a lot
too
more
much.
than
That's
I do.
4.
I normally do 4.
Yeah,
I do one side of their face, the middle, this side of their face, and then this. So
You're just
5.
basically trying to make sure that you're getting this mist all over their face.
Yeah.
They should close their eyes.
Definitely.
And-
have them close their eyes gently, not like this.
Yeah, no, there's no
Okay,
squeezing
no,
of
it's
the
just
eyes.
gentle eyes like this.
And once you spray them, they're going to want to keep their eyes closed until it's dry, which is why I have this beautiful fan. And you just kind of fan them a little bit because it can sting their eyes a little bit. Don't tell them that in advance, but it can sting their eyes if they open their eyes up a little too early. And that's just because it's not meant to go in your eyes like anything else. It's not meant to
Like
go
I
in your
said,
eyes.
it's kind of hairspray.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're just pretend spray. So you got and then you just fan them a little bit
Right.
until they feel like it's dry.
Right. And so when I do it, I start, we'll just do the way I normally do. So I start at the top. So I go, shh, shh, shh. And when I do is I say, okay, kiddo, when I count to 3, I'm going to do a spray. So I say 1, 2, 3, shh. 1, 2, 3, shh. 1, 2, 3, shh. Then I say, okay, keep your eyes closed. Take a breath. Okay, now we're going to do the other 2 sides of your neck. 1, 2, 3, shh. 1, 2, 3, shh. And you're done. Okay? These things can be tricky. This is the barrier spray. It can be picky in that, like I said, it's hairspray. So, not really hairspray, but that's kind of what it is. So, like hairspray, the tip of it can get clogged. So before you start, make sure that you, sometimes I use a wipe. We'll try to make sure they're all, what the best thing to do is run them under hot water and use a wipe. But the thing is that between the shows, we probably won't get that done. So before you start, it's a good idea to just make sure it's wiped really well. Because otherwise, oh my gosh, if it comes off in a stream and they have to go back to start makeup over again because it'll like run, it's not good. So
even doing like a test spray
Yes,
off to the side
yes.
is like worth it so that you're not standing there going, I don't know why it's coming out. And they're standing there going, oh God, please don't spray me.
so true.
It just makes it a little bit easier.
Okay, so we are done. This is the makeup tutorial for basic stage makeup. This is for the Willy Wonka show, but this is we're going to put this up on the website as our basic stage makeup.